Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunnavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Oh Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya, Story Shishi Mata's Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki. Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravijacharya, Story Shishi Mata's Divine Grace, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki. Anantikoti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki. Nam Acharya Staridas Thakur Ki. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Sisi Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyam Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki. Vrindavan Navadip Dham ki, Gangamai Jamunamai ki, Bhakti Devi Tulasi Devi ki, Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to the assembled devotee. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna. So thank you everybody for chanting so nicely, and thank you also for singing so nicely. And it's wonderful to just chant and dance. I saw Baba Bhakti. I was remembering Bhakti Tirtha Swami, how we used to dance together. It's amazing. We used to sprint, up and down. Yeah, up and down. We're just sprinting. He had this amazing power to make this whole temple shake. Yeah. Anyway, we're reading from, every Saturdays we read from Hari Suri's diary. I'll read and comment, and if you feel that you want to make any contributions, please feel free to do so. Is it okay? I'll paraphrase some things. So we're reading from March 11th, 1976. This is Sridham Mayapur. Prabhupada took his walk on the roof with the GBC members and sannyasis. Yasomati Nandan Das from Gujarat had visited one of Prabhupada's leading god brothers in a neighboring math here in Mayapur. He reported back that on hearing Srila Prabhupada's achievement, the god brother commented, "Your Guru Maharaj was previously a businessman, and we are, from our childhood, we are Vaishnav. So therefore he is doing business and getting money." For those who have worked here in Mayapur over the last few years, such attitudes and comments are not new, but the lack of propriety in speaking such things to Prabhupada's own disciple is still surprising. So yes, Prabhupada was a pharmacist. He was actually a drug dealer. Right? He was a pharmacist, a drug dealer. So yeah, he was a drug dealer. But anyway, Prabhupada was in that sense a businessman, but that didn't make him not a Vaishnav. Because as he commented, that he didn't forget Krishna for a moment, so he is very, very Krishna conscious. The other thing is, if you hear some criticism or some, especially pertaining to your spiritual master, that enters deep into your heart, and unfortunately you're scarred for life. You'll be scarred for life actually. Because some of the disciples went across the Ganga and had some association with Prabhupada's god brothers. And then Prabhupada told them that you're scarred for life. So you have to be very, very careful. And, as we know that there's an interesting, point that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur makes. It's actually about a Nanga Panchu. It was a naked Panchu, a naked person. He was like, when you're young, you're running in the neighborhood, and so later he became a judge. And one person is saying, the way Prabhupada paraphrases it in his conversations, he says one person was saying that he's become a judge. The other person is saying, no, it can't be. Then finally they come to the point, okay. No, he said, well, I saw him sitting on the bench. A bench means, the legal, it's a legal term. So he said, okay, he may be a judge, but he's not getting salary. So the point is, if somebody is envious, they're bound to find some fault. When Prabhupada makes this point, that if you, if you're envious, envy means, you know what envy means? You don't like somebody. That's the meaning of envy. So if you look at that definition, it probably encompasses all of us, right? Because sometimes don't like somebody. So yeah. So but Prabhupada commented in another place, like you're talking about business, then yes, he was a businessman and he was a student of economics. What? Land, labor, capital and organization. 4 things when you do economics. So he said yes, he worked hard, he went to America, he got money, he had the brain to do it. He was organized. Prabhupada was very intelligent and in responding to his disciples. Then as the discussion goes along, as he's walking on the roof, he could hear this music, Shanai music. You familiar with this? Oh, you're not familiar. In India, it's very, in restaurants they play it and things like that. So you carry on eating, the nice background music, and it's like you lose yourself. It's a very interesting Shanai music, yeah. If you don't know, you can ask one devotee. His name is Rupanugadas. So he loves Shanai music, or Ramanujacharya. Yeah, they quite familiar with the Prabhupada approves, saying that such liturgy is not pompous display or self-aggrandizement. It is Acharya Upasana, worship of Krishna's representative, and is therefore needed because that is a way of spiritual advancement. Only with full faith in the Guru one can understand spiritual truth. So one has to surrender to the spiritual master. And the spiritual master may not know everything, but still, if you approach him, he will be able to get guided and give you direction. So at no point we should feel that the spiritual master is incompetent. Don't do that. Now I'm reminded about Kadamba Swami, who was in Vrindavan. And we went for the initiation in the Goshala. And, there was a lot of, Western devotees, and I think Virabhadra was there also. And I don't know if you were there, but anyway, he said, I'm giving you a name now, but when I walk outside there, I might not remember it. What I gave you, what name I have given you. And you're there? Yeah. It happens. So yeah. So that I appreciated him more because he was just downright straight and honest about being a spiritual master. That not that that he knows everything. It's not like that. How many hairs in your head or something like that. It's not like that. So it's to give you spiritual direction. There's a devotee, Panchadravida Swami, wanted to know how a person can attain perfection simply from one love or 1/11th of a second association with a pure devotee. And Srila Prabhupada stopped and turned to him as we all gathered around. He said, it is like dry wood. So what happens to dry wood? It can be ignited immediately. So similarly, if one is sincere, then he can be immediately spiritually ignited. If one is sincere. And what is the definition of sincerity? Well, Prabhupada's definition is to follow all rules and regulation, no matter how big or how small. That's the sincerity. And then yes, and then he continues, and still, if he's still moist from material contact, it may take hundreds of years or lifetimes. So if he's comparing it to wet wood, moist. But a pure devotee is like a match. And the recipient is the wood, it's the devotee. If both are good, then there is fire. Then there is fire. So when you go to the fire, you become dry. But willfully we put again water. What we mean, we're putting water again, then the nonsense business starts again and we become wet. And then again, we have to be ignited. Now the spiritual master, as quoting Kadamba Swami, is not like a flying doctor, running everywhere and, flying doctor he was talking about. Yeah. So, the spiritual master gives directions and instructions, and you may not be able to get so much physical association. He himself quoted that in absence of the spiritual master, he was quoting Satswarup Maharaj, that his relationship grew after the departure of Srila Prabhupada. So the relationship can grow with the spiritual master as long as one is sincere and connected. So all the rules and regulations that we have are like the drying process, but we have to follow the rules, otherwise we'll be victimized by Maya. And perhaps you know about Maya. I don't know. You know how it works. It's very dangerous, yeah. And then, then when you're victimized by Maya, it takes a long time before one comes out of it. I've seen people suffer and battle through it. Spending a long time in Krishna consciousness myself, and associating with many, many people. Yeah. So, there's I heard this, this story from my father, but, then I see Prabhupada spoke about it. He was quoting one of his sannyasi disciples, drifted away and stopped following the principles of Krishna consciousness, and he grew long hair, and he stopped wearing a dhoti. For devotees, they must wear a dhoti and kurta. It's very, even when we went to Namibia, we came with our dhoti, but when we landed there, they didn't want to allow us in because they saw we like kind of weird people, But still we wore our dhoti, and yes. But he was a spiritual leader, he was a sannyasi, and then he came to Srila Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada told a story to illustrate the point of how there was a rich man and a yogi. And the rich man, the yogi could stand in water for the whole night till the next morning. So the rich man took a bet with this yogi that, to do that, to see whether he can do that so he can make some money from the yogi. But, yogis don't have much money. But anyway, he didn't have that knowledge. But then there's the servant of the rich man. Then they came. They left and they came. But anyway, when they went the next morning, one person said, "Well, there's a light there far away." The yogi was getting the light from there, and that he felt warm, and then he was able to stay in the water. So, but then, anyway, when they went back, the servant had to cook prasadam. When you come from Harinam, you have to have prasadam. So anyway, he had a very strange arrangement, like a tripod, like bamboo tripod. The pot is on the top and the fire is in the bottom, and he's cooking. So he's cooking, and the rich man is getting agitated because the prasadam is not ready. You know how prasadam is, sometimes devotees can get angry when the prasadam is not ready. And he was getting angry and just like, I'm cooking. So finally the rich man, he walked in and he saw this strange gentleman. Again, how can you cook like that? But he said, how can you, say the yogi got light from such a distance? It couldn't be. Then, anyway, then he realized that he had cheated that guy, yogi, and then he went and paid the yogi. But Prabhupada told his story about what was the punchline, and I'll read it. If you want to cook, then you have to cook according to the method. You may have a pot and you may have a flame, but if you don't cook according to the method, then you'll never get the food. It will never work. So he may be chanting Hare Krishna, and now Prabhupada looked at his fallen sannyasi disciple. But if you are not following the process, then what good is your chanting? If you want to get the result, you have to follow the method. That was the punchline, So you have to follow the method. So then there's a discussion. Did anybody make any comments or anything? No. Now, Vishnu Jan Swami was a very, very charismatic devotee. He could dance and do so many things. But here I'll just read. Vishnu Jan Swami, the co-leader of the Radha Damodar Transcendental Sankirtan party, who was listening in the background, spoke for the first time. Srila Prabhupada, how did Chota Haridas achieve perfection by killing himself after apparently pouring water on his devotional creeper by talking to a woman? Like if somebody is in the renounced order, then he doesn't associate intimately with the opposite sex. It'll apply both ways, not only applies both ways. Even we have females who are renounced in Krishna consciousness. He was referring to the close associate of Lord Chaitanya, who drowned himself in the Ganga after being rejected by the Lord. So, this was the situation. He drowned himself. Should he have done that, or should he not? Krishna Chaitanya? So anyway, he did that. He drowned himself, and the way Harisu records it, and he quotes him, Prabhupada's reply was very grave. His instance was that even an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can fall down. So falling down, sometimes people get into all this discussion how you fell from the spiritual world. But you can even fall down, whilst you with the Lord, even in this world. So that was, And if you fall down, then the punishment is suicide. There is no other punishment, but he must commit suicide. So this was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction. Otherwise, he is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's servant. He cannot fall down. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed this instance. Even one is my personal servant, he can fall down. And if anyone, by any cause, he falls down, his punishment is he must commit suicide. This is the instruction. So the thing is, we don't have to do this. Otherwise, we won't have a movement. Yeah, we won't have a movement if we don't. Ujjwala is agreeing. Sisi Radharana ki jai. Yeah, we won't have a movement if we have to do that. And let me tell you, ladies are very powerful. One of the ways to remain celibate is not to offend a female. Don't do that. Okay, Radharaman? Where is it? Yeah. Oh, anyway, not yet. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So.
Did Prabhupada respond like that after he heard that his disciple committed suicide?
Yeah, that's true. You see, this is in the. Well, anyway, that disciple raises this question. It's a good point. It's a good point, Baba. That question has been raised by Vishnu Jan Maharaj. It's coming down. I'll just read it beforehand. Vishnu Jan Maharaj withdrew to the back of the other sannyasis, sought clarification, like you're doing. Satsvarup mentioned that in the Nectar of Devotion, it says that devotional service is so pure that there is no prayaschitta or atonement necessary if one falls down. Just again engage in your service. Prabhupada agreed that Chota Haridas' case was not typical. His was exemplary punishment that was enacted between him and the Lord. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was harder than a thunderbolt and softer than the rose. Now going back to that question, that Chota Haridas committed suicide in the Trivreni in Ganga, and but when he committed suicide, he went back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his spiritual body, and he was singing. Now Vishnu Jan Swami also committed suicide, because he felt that he broke the principle. I think he hired a boat, he got some Brahmins to chant some mantras, went into the center, and drowned himself. And when Prabhupada heard that, he was sad that happened, because a devotee doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to do that, because this was a different case, in the case of Chota Haridas, because he could go back in a spiritual body, because generally when somebody drowns or takes his life, then he becomes a subtle body or a ghost. So he, in this case it's a little different, but Vishnu Jan Swami shouldn't have done that. But it's interesting that Prabhupada, I think he was dreaming. I was looking for it, but I couldn't find it before I came up here. He had a dream, and in this dream, because in this dream, he could hear that Vishnu Jan Swami, who was also a singer, could hear his singing. So that kind of reconciles that pastime. That this person took his life away. So, is it okay? But is it? You see, it's okay, because in that sense. But Prabhupada was not. If somebody kills themselves, they become ghosts, or they take their life away. So your question was that. What is your question again? No. It says here in his diary. It is said like that. That's what I read. Prabhupada's reply was very grave. His instant was that even the associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu can fall down, and if one falls down, the punishment is that suicide. There is no other punishment. Yeah. He didn't hear that. That's correct. He didn't hear the second part. Yeah. Yes. Correct.
There was a Mataji that committed suicide, and Bhatta Maharaj at a memorial, he said that because she was in a helpless condition and she committed suicide, so she most probably got another body or went back home, back to Godhead immediately. So I was quite surprised, because from my understanding that if anyone commits suicide, then they remain in a subtle body until their time was up. But when I heard Maharaj say, and he quoted, I think the 10th canto, it's in the purport somewhere, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Prabhupada makes this point, that if one is in a helpless condition and they commit suicide, then they take on another body, especially a devotee. So.
Well, there is a pastime, of Gokarna, and his brother who had he was killed and he had a ghost body. Well, it's simply a subtle body. And then Gokarna was trying to do many rituals to make him get a gross body. So he couldn't get a gross body. So he went to Gaya and he came back and he could feel the presence of his brother in the form of a ghost. So he approached, higher personalities, and then the instruction he got that you had to recite the Bhagavatam for 7 days. So for 7 days, he started reciting the Bhagavatam, and lots of people came and to hear the Bhagavatam. But he came. The subtle body took shelter in a bamboo that had knots. So every night when the katha finished, one knot would break. So after the 7th night, that person got his spiritual form and he was going back to Godhead. But just by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. So in that sense, then he went back. But then the question arose, how was it that so many people were listening and they didn't go back to Godhead? And the answer given there in the commentary that that person was hearing with rapt attention. Like we have many people in the crowd be hearing, thinking when this fellow going to stop, when prasadam is going to be served, what they're serving, and things like that. These type of things. So, oh man, that's thanks to Moiriva Bhatta. Lord Bhatta. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, so he was hearing with rapt attention. And then, he got his spiritual form and went back to Godhead. That's by hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam. But there is many other pastimes, like even the reading of the Bhagavad Gita, the 5th chapter. Somebody like that can go back to the Godhead and met a serious accident or something like that. I went to one house, they didn't want us to do anything. I sat there quietly, I'm reading the Bhagavad Gita verses, he passed away and the lady didn't want us to do anything, so I just opened it and while sitting there I read the whole thing, all the verses. Yeah. So like that he went back to Godhead, and then he went back to Vaikuntha. But then Gokarna, who was a coward boy, his relationship was a coward boy, he went back to Goloka Vrindavan. He didn't go at that point in time, but later there was another katha, and then he goes back to the spiritual world. I haven't read that, that it's... See, like Prabhupada, the way he did it by chanting, when there were like ghosts in London when he went, and he bought some places, and there were ghosts in those apartments, then he just chanted Hare Krishna and they left. But they heard Krishna's name, that's how they left, Yes. Give her a mic. Because they have to hear in the broadcast.
Okay. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. So now that you're preaching to us New Agers, and we are listening to these pastimes, how will you advise us in this day and age when we are falling every day? Must we also commit suicide? Or what is the best approach? No.
That's a good point, because lots of them, when you go to even India now, the suicide rate is very high. Lots of people are committing suicide. I was there in February and I was meeting a lot of people, they're stressed. But don't do that, because you see, the body is given for a particular purpose and it has a duration of life. Now if you don't use it for that time, it's not yours actually, because you're not the body. It doesn't belong to you. You're the soul, right? The body belongs to Krishna. It has to be used in Krishna's service. So if you destroy the body, you'll get some reaction. And the reaction is that you won't have a body for that period that you're meant to live. That's the reaction you get. So don't do that, because that's, it's like, I'll give you another example. Say for example, somebody is imprisoned. What that some bester fellow just now escaped or something. Right? Now he's imprisoned, he got a term of imprisonment, and he runs out of imprisonment. When he comes back, what he'll get? He'll get double punishment. That's how the law works. Because for his first crime, and secondly, that he ran away out and run out of prison by illegal means, and then they give him another punishment. So why would you want to suffer twice? You get the picture? The approach is that one should surrender to spiritual people, or have a good association of devotees, and that will be a proper approach. One get counseled. A lot of people got counseled, and they come out of that suicide tendencies. They come out of it. But that counseling can be done by professional people also. Could be done by devotees who are also. But don't commit suicide. Please don't do that. This is not what we're recommending. Please don't do that. Read Srimad Bhagavatam. You'll fall off to sleep. Because you see our devotees, when we have Bhagavatam class, they're fishing. They'll fall off to sleep. Is it? True. It reminds me, one senior devotee was sitting in a class here, and he was going like that. And Bhakti Tita Maharaj told him, I can't tell his name now. Anyway, he's coming to him. Anyway, he said, we need your association. We need, he called his name and said, we need your association. Haribol, we need your association. A nice way, said he, but anyway. Yeah, so don't do that. Yeah, the right thing to do, to consult with people, and like I had an experience like that, and I went to I was in the night distributing books, and I went to this person's house, frustrated guy. So I looked at him. I sat on the floor. So I sat on the floor, and then he started looking at me. So I started open my Bhagavad Gita. He said, I don't know what brought you here, because I was just contemplating committing suicide. And then I spoke to him on the Bhagavad Gita and the soul and the body for quite a while. Then I used to visit him, like for many, many weeks I visited him and preached to him. But he didn't come a devotee. But he didn't commit suicide. He bought that Bhagavad Gita that day. He read the whole Bhagavad Gita, and he was convinced that this was the proper route to go and not to take his life away. And then he became associated with us a little. But he nearly didn't become a serious person. And then he started working for a company called Picture Perfect. So I heard about it, so I went there. We needed to make frames. So I went there, and we started making frames. His name was Robin. He's very nice. I started making frames, making lots of frames for us, and he was doing it free. He was doing it free. So we engaged him in devotional service, and gradually engaged him in devotional service. He's still around, but he never became a very sincere, serious devotee. He would chant a little bit. He would try some things, but it helps like that, yeah. So preaching to the person, and but when you read Prabhupada books, you become a psychologist yourself, isn't it? People go study psychology, they come but a devotee smash all the psychology. It reminds me, I met an atheist teacher, and this atheist teacher, we would go to the house. The husband was spiritual, but she was like atheist. She was in Shastri College. Anyway, I was preaching to her, and then she said, what work you do? I reckon, no, I'm a messenger. I said, what messenger? I reckon, no, we just take letters from one place to another. That's a messenger's job. Then I started talking about Sigmund Freud and Maslow's theory and all these things. She reckon, because she's a studied psychology. She's thinking, how you know all these things? I reckon these stupid people can know this thing too. You know, we like silly fellows can know this thing. And then she got taken aback. She got taken aback, you know, that I reckon, no, but when you read these books, it's all there. You know, one day Kadamba Maharaj was giving a talk and he was talking all about Sigmund Freud and Maslow's theory and George Orwell and so many different things. You know? So we learn it from Prabhupada's books. Yeah, if somebody want to raise something. Yes, Vasanti.
Thank you for that nice class, Raghunath. Bhatta Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji asked what the remedy is if we're falling down. Is that right? And then she said, should we commit suicide? And you said no. But then I'm wondering, what is the remedy then? If we
To commit suicide is I said to you, is to take association of devotees who can help you through it, because you need counseling into taking you off that situation. Like, because there's certain triggers that are causing you to do this. You know, you'll have like when one is stressed or anxiety, it leads to depression. But the definition of depression is what? What's the definition of depression? Is you withholding your love. That's all. Withholding love. Because if you give love, if you're withholding it, that's your Guru Maharaj says that. So if you give it, you won't be depressed, because you're withholding it. See, because by nature we all have love in our heart. We all have that, and we're meant to give it. Isn't it? When you give it, then you're never depressed. But if you keep it and you suppress it, then you'll be depressed. What are you saying, Baba Sandeep? It makes sense. Somebody else want to comment on it? Huh?
So depression is like feeling sorry for yourself. You're too much on the bodily platform.
Yeah. So by nature we are loving, you know, it's dormant in our heart. We have to love. When you start loving people, yeah, it's different. Yes, Ujjwala.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I'm very good at faking rapt attention. You know, and sometimes even during kirtan, I don't feel like jumping up and down. But then maybe I see Nadia Gudrum jumping up and down. Then I just join in. So I'm very good at faking that. So, but everyone else seems fine. You know, everyone else seems to be getting it. Everyone else seems to be progressing in spiritual life somehow. And I feel like I'm just the only one that's really, you know, I've been a neophyte for the past 10 years. When do I know that it's real now? When do I know that the faking has stopped and that, you know, I'm really starting to get into the process?
Faking it, yeah. But it's best to see. The thing is, I think also Vishnu Jan Swami also, he said that he, you know, people think that he's enthusiastic, but he just starts jumping, then the others start jumping. And when the others start jumping, he gets inspired. So that's what you should do. You should just jump just jump up and down. And then you get inspired. If others get inspired, they inspire you. So like Nadia, he loves Krishna consciousness, he's dancing and is happy. So yeah. But if you want a more in-depth answer, you can look at the Madhurya Kadambini. It talks about how people, when they're doing japa or they're chanting, they're gossiping and things like that. You have to become free from that. It's more like, you know, when you become steady, even in the stage of nishta, when one is steady, his mind still runs away. It's not that it's like fixed. Although nishta means fixed, it's not that so fixed. The mind also runs away. But you have to bring it back. But when you reach the, you know, like with the stage of ashakti or attachment, your mind naturally runs to the kirtan. You see, so you have to rise above. But you see, the anarthas, to come out from the anarthas, it's very difficult. It's not so easy. Because when you're chanting, you're thinking of so many things. What you'll think of? Nadia?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I would like to comment on something that just came up while there was comments about depression. And I just feel that depression is very real, you know. We should not really dismiss it as Maya.
Oh no.
Because when a person is going through it, it is like when you have lost a loved one. Our scriptures teach us about that the body is temporary. But when you lose a person, you will cry. So will we say you in Maya
No.
when you lose your mother?
No.
No, in the same way, depression could be some chemical imbalances.
That's true.
It could be childhood traumas that you have not dealt with or do not even have the knowledge on how to deal with that. So in this part of Bhakti, it's very complicated at times, and not every situation is can be matched to another. Our relationships with Krishna are individual.
Correct.
So my personal advice is seek professional help.
Correct. I
We
said that.
have devotees that are qualified within the profession of psychology and psychiatry. So seek professional help rather. Do not take chances.
Yeah.
And also for devotees, when somebody comes to you, opens up about this issue, do not advise them that they're in Maya.
No. Correct.
Let's be, very sensitive, and also understand that some things, although we read Srila Prabhupada's books, some things are beyond our
Correct.
capacity.
Good point.
And give them solid advice.
Yeah. Now that's a good point, Nadia. Thank you very much for that. That's true. See, the mind is a subtle, it's an element, it's a subtle element. And in Prabhupada's time, there was one disciple, one devotee who was, she was serving, but she lost her mind. She went like bonkers. And she started looking into the bin, picking up stuff and wanted to eat. And then the father wanted her to go to a mental institution. And then, the devotees thought, well, why she should go there, for some treatment. And they went to Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said, yes, she can go. She should go for this treatment, because, and he was saying, like, the mind is just like another part of the body. It can be fixed. And then she went, she got some treatment, and she came back and was normal, doing service. So he says, professional help. Thank you for that.
Hare Krishna. I just want to go back to something you mentioned previously when you talked about Karama Maharaj forgetting the name of the disciple as soon as he left. That actually happened to me. So he gave me initiation, and then he left South Africa. We met like a year later, and he was like, "What's your name again?" And because he knows me as Kenneth, like, it's not Kenneth, but what's your name again? Like, no, it's Karuna. Like, oh yes. And then later on, he talked in one of his Friday Zoom classes that it is the disciples' responsibility to make sure the spiritual master remembers their name. Maybe you can comment on that.
You said the last part again?
It's the responsibility of the disciple to ensure that the spiritual master remembers their name.
Yeah, that's a good thing, because see, your connection with the spiritual master means communicating with him. And when you end up your letter, you're writing your name. So, in some instances, people don't communicate with the spiritual master, but if you communicate with him, then he will remember in that background, that this is the person that he can, because you don't expect him to remember 600-700 people or 2,000 people, it's not possible also. So, by communication, and I heard once in Hitopadesh, and this is that if you don't remember somebody's name, means that you don't have a relationship with that person, so you don't remember his name. So therefore, Prabhupada could remember a lot of people's names, but it doesn't mean like a pure devotee can remember everything, because even Srila Prabhupada, he was being when they were fighting for the Juhu property, And when they were fighting for the Juhu property, the lawyer, who was their lawyer, was on the other side, on the opposition side. And he said, I didn't know that this person is on the opposition side. I really didn't know. I couldn't. And he said, then he responded, he said, Krishna wanted me to forget it. Didn't make me remember, because that verse in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, what is it? Sarvasya cha amhidi sanivishtu matasmitir jnanam apanam cha. I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So Krishna can make the person forget also. So he didn't know. It's interesting how Prabhupada's all his pastimes you can respond to these things, because that therefore you have to read this. All his pastime books written by his disciples, and yeah. So, but on the other hand, it's not that he doesn't, he pray for all his disciples. But if you communicate to them and you have a specific problem, then he'll pray for you specifically, but which you don't do, and then he doesn't know you. We must do that. Is that okay? Yes, Ujjwal.
Hare Krishna. So ISKCON is a hospital, right? It's an institution that's here to fix us. I'm just saying ISKCON is a hospital, and it's here to fix us. But I sometimes feel like we expect it to be perfect patients, and I think that's like a contradiction. So I've fallen down a few times myself.
Yeah.
And when I approached, Maharaj, he said to me, I like the fact that you keep coming back to me.
Good.
But now, how do we kind of live with the fact that maybe, a devotee sees you smoking, or they see you've gone back to, Maya or something, and you come into the temple and you can see that look on the devotee's face that, you're like trash, or, you shouldn't really be here, or, that type of thing. Is there a way for us as an institution to be softer about it?
Yeah. We have to
in
be
the sense that you feel welcome again, and how can we then reconnect after we've fallen down? It is a serious thing. It happens.
Yeah, it's I think that's a good point. When somebody has like broken the principles and like fallen down, we should be compassionate to the person, because you can't and don't expect him to change overnight. Like I remember, there was a person who should come to the temple every morning. He took initiation, and then there's a young boy, he's an engineer, and then he disappeared, just left. And then one day I saw him in some wedding, and then I told him, he said, no, I'm agnostic now. I reckon, oh, okay, never mind, but you can come and see me in the temple. He came to the temple. We started chatting a little bit. I was just chatting with him and all, and told him, no, just do one round a day. Just slowly do one round. And he lost that contact with his spiritual master. And then I told him just do one round. He was coming, but then, he was out of it, you would say, So during the COVID time, so his mother was very ill. So I got some nice Mahaprasadam. I phoned him. He came and picked it up. He took it for his mother. So his mother had eaten the prasadam, and in some short time she left her body. So he felt very, he was very pleased by that. I just gave the Mahaprasad, but then he felt very pleased. And then he started coming more. And then he got to 4 rounds. But now he's on 8 rounds of chanting. But he's not on 16 rounds, but he's getting connected again. So we have to have that compassion, and we have to see how it requires some tact, how to bring the person back into the fold. And then slowly, now he's on 8 rounds, he started following, his wife started coming more often, and so it's slowly growing. But even if somebody is breaking the principles, we should encourage them, come to the temple or take some prasadam for them or do something that they will feel like they want to reveal their heart to you. What has caused them to go back to smoking and liquor and meat eating and things like that? And people will reveal the heart, and then because real association is revelation of the heart. It's not the physical only, is it? Real association is revelation of the heart, where you reveal your mind to the to the other party, and they will give advice, and that's how you can develop and grow. And there's so many people I know that come and they took initiation and they left, but still we meant to encourage them and bring them back. I can give you so many examples like that. See, sometimes we pay more attention, we want to be more Krishna conscious, that we over Krishna conscious. And one example that comes to mind was that Mother Malati, her daughter Saraswati, had dunked her hand in the chutney and she got burnt. So they were going to offer the chutney. So what do you think the devotees thought of first? The first thing they thought, how are we going to offer it? How can you offer it? Because the hand went in there. How can you offer it? But they're not thinking of the hand being burnt. You understand the point? So because you're so Krishna conscious, you're thinking of that. But if you really, then you went to Prabhupada reckon, how's her hand? He reckon it's burnt, so you reckon, please take it to the doctor immediately. So sometimes, we get so Krishna conscious, we forget. We forget, So people are going to have challenges like that also and difficulties. So we must be more compassionate and bring them slowly in, and gradually they will change. But there must be a place where they can express themselves. You must have that community, that forum to express themselves.
But that's where devotee relationships comes in.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, because you've brought out so many things.
Yeah.
So many things have come out of this class, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. So my mind has been like
Shoo.
So
She's in bhava.
Please forgive me if it's not
No, it's okay.
So there's so many things that came out, but one of the things that as preachers and teachers, we should be very careful of how we bring out those gifts that we've been given to actually give to everyone. Because when I'm sitting here, you are representing Vyasadeva.
Correct.
Whatever you say, I'm going to take that.
Correct.
Right? So in Krishna consciousness, we have to be very careful.
Very.
Because when you say to me, I don't know whether that devotee he was not serious. He didn't become a devotee. To me, that says something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You went there, you chanted with him. That's being a devotee.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that he has to wear tilak, wear dhoti, wear this, wear that. So we have to be very careful of how we present Krishna consciousness.
It's true. That's a good point.
We have to be very careful.
See, even in African tradition, they have certain traditional way which they like to take in the use, and it's allowed. In fact, we should look at dressing our deity in that African style also.
It should be like that.
Yeah. So we should be looking into that also, because that's it's like, when you look at I worked for the education department. I worked with a lot of African people, and I learnt a lot of the culture and went to many areas of the African areas, and they have very deep culture which they follow. So when one becomes a devotee, they can't just lose that. It's not something that they can just give up. because it's still there in their consciousness. But you can blend it to a devotional service, and how you how you do it. There's various ways of doing it. So that's important. Like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I'm always there because I saw her. I just wanted to talk about him, and he's mentioned here in this Hari Suri's diary as Ganasham, and he had this he'll wear an African attire and he'll carry his stick with his Nishingadev there, carry his, and and when he went to the University of Durban Westville, he had that attire. And he was roaring in that way, that place where we distribute prasadam, roaring like a lion. And it's interesting, when my wife had passed away some decades ago, but anyway, he was in the temple room, and he was, because normally we do many programs together, and he said, I said, I'm sorry that I couldn't do anything, and I was not with you and all. He said, no, I understand your heart. He knew about it, so he said, no, I understand your heart. So, yeah, he was very intuitive, he's very intuitive. So as devotees, we can also be intuitive, by surrender to the Guru and to Krishna. We can also become intuitive. Intuition is another word for Paramatma. That's what it means. Paramatma, the super soul, giving you direction. That's what intuition means. But what does it mean? If you say intuition, what does it mean? You can't explain it, right? It means the super soul that's giving direction. Yeah, so it's like that. It's such a nice way to discuss, and it's so wonderful. Oh, Prabhu Karuna Prabhu was singing, and so when I walked in, I just ran, I heard the holy names. Yes, anybody want to say anything else? Y'all can share, yes.
I'm so sorry. So there's one point. So there's a point that he was mentioning, that when a devotee comes in and they've been away and they were smoking, and this devotee saw them, and then there's this thing that you see a devotee and you're feeling like, oh my God, what a trash, what do you want? I just want to say that it's each and everyone's individual responsibility to be Krishna conscious.
Yes.
Sometimes we give other people our responsibility of being Krishna conscious, but it's our responsibility to be Krishna conscious. Yes, we might feel guilt that I went out and I did this and I did that and I did that, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility to be Krishna conscious.
Yeah, that's true. You see, nobody can harm your devotional service, only you can do it yourself. Not that other person gossiping about you, they're going to harm you. Only you harm it yourself. It's okay. But there's many things I could say about it. My mind is also running to say so many things, but we normally stop at 8:30. But we stopped the kirtan late, so 5 minutes late. I stopped on exact time. I'm very timeous. I know exactly when you stop, yeah. So thank you so much. It's wonderful to be in here. We have to go on Harinam now.
Sorry, Prabhu. Lotus flower grows in a pond, and the pond is dirty. Doesn't that depict our nature? Good and bad, they exist eternally. So for me, I can't take the idea that there will be someone perfect. I just can't take it. We follow regulative principles to purify ourselves so that we can tap our souls. The lotus flower appears, even however dirty the pond may be. In fact, the dirtiness supports the appearance of the lotus flower. I'm not saying people should do bad things because it's natural. For me, it's my consciousness that we bad and we also good, and that is eternal. It's not going to change. When somebody dies, however pure that person may be, it's good that Indian culture brought cremation. But when someone dies, when that person goes down the grave, the same worms that were acting positively in his body, they turn against the body. They start devouring the body. Now, for me, Krishna consciousness is a shelter for everyone, whether good or bad. Mostly, devotees, they feel they're approaching perfection, and they start instructing others. They start telling others, you're doing bad, you must do this. I wonder if someone says that, is that person not going to do bad? Is that person going to stay pure? This is what I can reiterate. A lotus flower grows in a pond, and we need to be conscious of that. We are approaching eternity. We need to have a consciousness that is aware of eternity. There's no suicide. There's no illness. There's no grief. There's no sorrow when you know that you're eternal. When you consciously know that you're eternal. It must never be theoretical. It must be a conscious thing that you live with. So that when you see the next person, you feel happy. You feel happy that this is so, without any judgment. Thank you.
That's a good point. Thank you. Yes, everybody is spirit soul. At least theoretically we should understand that. But as we progress in Krishna consciousness, is Gyan and Vigyan, you'll get realized knowledge. But when Srila Prabhupada, in that verse 518, you know this verse? Vidya Vinaya Sampane? Yes. Pandita Samadarshinaha. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and a gentle brahmana, a cow and an elephant, a dog and a dog-eater. So he sees equally. But when there was a conversation with Prabhupada said, no, I don't see equally. He said that the dog has got a body because of impious activities. And the human being has got his body because of pious activities. So I see difference. You get it? He sees difference. So, but then as that conversation pursued, it's a long thing, I can't get into the detail, but as the conversation pursued, that person started finding fault on Prabhupada. So Prabhupada said, if you sing equally, why are you finding fault with me? You're not singing equally, because you're finding fault on me. You get it? So you're finding fault on me, so he's not singing equally. Then Prabhupada said, and that comes to what you said about Krishna consciousness, he said, Krishna consciousness was locked up in India. And it was locked up in India, and I went out there and gave it to every person around the world. Don't you think that is Pandita Sama Darshinaha? Don't you think that is equality? That I gave it to everybody without any discrimination. That's the equality. That's a good point, right? That is how Prabhupada saw it. But thank you very much. No. Thank you for your inputs. It's a good point. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. You know what? We didn't even go one paragraph. I will carry on next time.